faith, family, and everything else that matters to you from a godly point of view. Welcome to the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast.
Hey, welcome in. It is the Clearbranch Methodist Podcast. I'm Pastor Mark Harvard. With me, as usual, is our lead pastor, Jeremy Oval. Jeremy, good to see you this week.
Glad to be here. We've got a great day. It's been an awesome week, and you can't get much better than this, man. That's good stuff.
Absolutely. And Jeremy, clean the baseboards, hide the dirty laundry. We've got company this week.
We do. And it's the kind of company that you would want to hide those things from, right?
Absolutely. It's one of our brand new bishops in the GMC. One that's actually serving Clearbranch in our conference.
Yeah.
We have Bishop Carolyn Moore with us on the podcast this week. Bishop, thanks for being here.
It's my pleasure. I'm honored to be asked to have a conversation.
Oh, absolutely. And that's really what we do here is we do a lot of conversations about a lot of varied topics.
Exactly.
So this will fit just fine. Be great.
Absolutely. We're very loose here. We have like I said, we just have a conversation. But I did get to read some of your story over on Art of Holiness, and your faith journey is one that a lot of people can, I guess, identify with. Because it had that gradual nature to it. You weren't going to church every single day, and then you had that contact, that awakening. Just tell us how that journey happened.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say you could really relate to my story if you spent a lot of years getting drunk and walking away from Jesus.
Wow.
That was a lot of my 20s. I grew up in the church. I sensed the call of God to come. I sensed the call of God to follow Jesus when I was 12, and sensed the call to preach when I was 13, or at least to be a pastor. I didn't understand it. Had never seen anybody like me doing it, but it was a very mystical call. And so that was my assumption. And then when I was 17, 18 years old, things kind of fell apart in my life. Because I had not seen, had the example of a female pastor, and nor had anyone else in my church who was guiding me. That call just got weakened and weakened until it didn't exist. And I didn't realize at the time how closely my faith was tied to my call. So I kind of fell apart. And for a good 10, 12 years, I was not walking with Jesus. And in my family, you can't swing a dead cat. I've said that a million times without hitting an alcoholic. And so it didn't take much for me to lose myself. And that's really what happened. I lost myself. God in his mercy introduced me to my husband during that time, and he and I came back to Christ together. And then at the age of 32, I answered that call that had been given to me at the age of 13, and we went to seminary. And so I've been serving Jesus ever since.
Wow. That's awesome. What a great story. And you do, I mean, it's tremendously relatable. I mean, how many of us have run the opposite direction for years and then been like, wait a second, this doesn't make sense?
Oh, absolutely. God knew that I had to get beat over the head a few times.
Oh, yeah.
Before I was going to say, okay, fine, we'll do it your way.
For sure.
Right.
Mark and I both were very reluctant responders to the call. So we get that. We get that.
Thing is, if it really doesn't matter what it does matter. Your story is your story, and it's beautiful and it's important. Your testimony can be such a powerful gift to somebody else who's walking the same road. But ultimately, anything that doesn't get you to the kingdom is walking away from Jesus.
Yeah.
So plenty of good people in the world who don't have my story are also floundering and walking away from themselves. So I'm just grateful. I'm just grateful to God for his mercy and his patience. He is so good. His holiness is a very positive thing. It's his holiness that allows him to wait patiently and peacefully because he is pure love inside himself. He doesn't need me. That's why he can wait for me. Isn't that a beautiful thing?
It is.
Yeah.
So good.
He just wants me.
I love how open you are about having that past. How do you see that has helped you in ministry?
Right. Well, I can say it just never really occurred to me to not be honest about where I've been. I've always shared my story, so it's never really occurred to me to do anything other than that. Because of that, it has definitely shaped my congregation. In both, I've served two congregations in 26 years, and in both cases, it shaped my congregation because transparency breeds transparency, and people who have a story attract other people who have a story, and so that's been my ministry in both of those locations, and that's been a joy because when somebody comes in and maybe for the first time in their church culture life, they find out that you can tell your story and nobody gets hurt. No, that's a great freedom. I did healing prayer this morning with someone who said that in their church to present as other than perfect or not or as other than okay was just it's just something that was never done. And so that's been a real gift to just and I do it. I mean, what I do just probably more out of naivete than anything else. It was certainly wasn't an intentional way to get to people. This is just who I am. But as a result, I've we as a congregation, we as a community have been able to model transparency, and that's fun. It's fun to watch people get honest with themselves and to watch them get whole. Because Jesus said, "You shall know the truth, and the truth will set you free."
So good.
How did that lead to the Art of Holiness?
Related, but maybe unrelated. When I was 50 years old, I remember distinctly, I was sitting, I think it was in a Kroger parking lot. And I said to the Lord, all right, I've spent the first half of my life kind of scattershot. I do lots and lots of things. I throw a lot of spaghetti up on the wall. I see what sticks. So I've gotten to have a lot of experiences, but I don't know that I've gone deep in any one area. And so, Lord, for the second half of my life, because I fully expect to live to be 100 years old, um, where can I focus? What would you have me focus on? And it took almost no time at all. It was just an instantaneous, in my spirit, I heard the word holiness. And I don't know how it is with you guys when you hear the voice of God in your life, but as Bob Tuttle once said, it's for me, it's as if I'm hearing something that's smarter than I could have thought of myself.
Mm-hmm.
It also feels it's a very clear word, almost like the clouds part. And there it is. It's just there. It's very clear. And that's the way that word came to me. It felt smarter than what I could have thought of myself because I did not grow up in a holiness tradition, didn't spend much time thinking or praying or talking or studying holiness other than what I'd done in seminary. But the word just came to me, holiness. And then I just became kind of obsessed with it. Started reading about holiness and studying and understanding it and realizing that the way that the message of holiness that is starving to be shared is the art of it. Because when we hear the word holiness, we so often think, well, holiness means don't drink, don't chew, and don't dance with the girls who do. That's holiness. But that's not holiness, that's Puritanism. Two different things completely.
Yeah.
Holiness doesn't start with our behavior. Holiness starts with the character of God. And so we always start with God's character in our life with him and in our understanding of what it means to follow him. We always start with the character of God. And the God of the universe is a creator, first of all. He is the ultimate artist. So out of that came the art of holiness. And since then, I've just found such incredible joy digging around, seeing what all the different aspects of holiness are, and talking to people who know better than me.
And is that where the podcast came in?
Yeah, it was a blog site before it was a podcast.
There you go.
Yeah.
But as soon as I heard the word holiness, I started the blog site and decided that everything I learned, this is where I'll put it. Mm-hmm.
That's great. It's amazing how God reveals those things to us, isn't it? And sometimes, as you say, it's undeniable right there in front of us. It is smarter than we are, and at the same time, it is so much more obvious than we could ever hope that it would be. I have a tendency to overcomplicate. And then when I encounter God in those moments, it's like the complication goes away and there's nothing else that I'm thinking about except for that. And that sounds like what you described.
Yeah, that's really well said. Well said.
Yeah, aren't we blessed that we have a God that is not limited by our own understanding or planning?
Amen.
Praise God.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I noticed on your bio, it talks about how, you had your mom was the tried and true, always going to be at church. Your dad was kind of like many other fathers that we see every week. I mean, or maybe we don't see every week. We see them on Christmas and Easter and a few other times when there's a special thing happening at the church. But it was a friend that invited you to a youth function that got you really in. And there's and I bring that up because that grabbed me, because that's how I became, I guess, more steady in my church growth, was because a friend of mine, basically, I went to visit him at work. I couldn't drive yet. My mom drove me there, and he kidnapped me and took me to a youth group that night. He was like, "Yeah, I'll bring you home, but it's going to be a few hours later than you thought." And after that point, they had to basically lock the doors to keep me out. But it's that personal invitation of faith, and it's so valuable when it comes to telling people about how Christ has worked in your life, and how the church has made such a difference in your life, that I feel like I could really relate to what your story was, because we've seen it happen so many other times in our own lives.
Yeah. And I will say, the person who invited me to go to youth group with her, she'd never been to that youth group either. She was just looking for somebody to go with her so that she wouldn't walk in by herself. And then she bailed on me at the last minute. So I didn't have the guts to tell my mom I didn't want to go to church, really, because this person wasn't going. So I let my mom take me. And when I got there that night, the youth pastor, it was a tiny little joke. I mean, it was barely a joke at all. He just said, "Let's open our Bibles." That was it. And I thought that was 12-year-old me, thought that was hilarious. Actually, 11-year-old me. It was 12 when I got saved. It was 11 when I started going. I was probably too young to even be there. But I just thought that was hilarious. I didn't know Christians had a sense of humor. And I remember thinking to myself, sitting in that chair, well, if Christians have a sense of humor, I'm in. And that's how I got there. The friend never came.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah.
So invited, bails, never shows up. Have you kept up with this person? Hopefully you've kept up with
No
them.
idea where she is now.
No clue. Oh, well, that's all right.
So how over the moon was your mom, though, when she was driving you to this church that you'd never been to, and you, I'm going to go to church tonight. Was it an answered prayer for her?
I guess. I don't know. I guess it was. I don't know that she had I don't know what my mom's thinking was on it. I know that she got tired of driving me to church after that.
I think all of our parents have probably been there before.
Sure.
Yeah, my mom passed away nearly 30 years ago. She was young when she passed away. But she did know of my calling before she knew that I'd come back around to my call. While she had not been in favor of it in the first place, by the time she died, she was very much in favor of it. And I know she'd be very proud today. She'd be very proud.
Oh, that's so good.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's great to have that
affirmation. And my dad too. While he might not have understood it, can you imagine being in heaven and getting good news things like, that your kid became a bishop in the church?
Yeah. Was that your dream all along? I'm curious. Is that something like, I know, like my call story was like, I had this kind of like you, I had this moment where I thought, I'm being called to ministry and it terrifies me. And I ran from that. And then I finally responded to it. And I'd always had this kind of a desire to be a pastor and to preach and to do these things, but I was so resistant to that. When you were first responding to that call to ministry, did you have any idea that you would one day be a bishop? Was that a long-filled dream? No?
Oh, no. And in the tribe that we've all come from, that was just like cursing somebody.
Isn't it great to be somewhere where it doesn't feel like a curse now, but a blessing? That's so good.
It's a whole different thing. Yeah. No, I didn't even think I was going to be a pastor. And if I was going to be a pastor, I was never going to be a lead pastor. I left seminary believing that. I left seminary believing I would not be a lead pastor, and that I was not called to preach. So, so when my first 5 years, I served as an associate intentionally, not because I was trying to train for the lead pastor role, but because I didn't plan to be a lead pastor. But was thrown into very quickly the they told me to start a new congregation out of our church. So it was kind of like a bait and switch, and I ended up preaching every Sunday, and struggled through that, figuring out how to do that. And then, but what did stick with me very quickly was the sense of being a church planter. And that call, that was a really exciting thing to me, the idea of planting a church. And so 26 years ago now, I planted Mosaic, and I was 21 years ago. 21 years ago, I planted Mosaic, and I loved every moment of that. I loved it. I loved watching something grow from nothing, and I got involved with the Wesleyan Covenant Association because I had such a strong commitment to holiness, and to could see where we had gone off the rails from historic Orthodox Methodism and or historic Orthodox Christianity. And so it's been a very slow process of just kind of finding myself in the middle of that movement, finding myself in the middle of the birth of the Global Methodist Church, and then just finding myself completely enamored of the idea of teaching and preaching Spirit-filled Methodism or anywhere I was asked to go. And that's how I ended up being a bishop. And I would tell you, it's not that it isn't the office or the title for me, it's the work. I just love the idea of supporting and envisioning and helping to build, being part of a team that is building a truly global expression of Spirit-filled Methodism. And I'd be the janitor in that group. I'd do anything in that group if I could just be in the room to watch Spirit-filled Methodism reach the ends of the earth.
And we are so thankful to have a bishop like you and to have others that are so aligned with that desire to really recapture what was sacrificed so long ago. Oh, it's beautiful. We've had the opportunity, of course, for those who are kind of joining in and don't realize we've had some history with our bishop. She came and was here for our annual conference last year. And then I was on your podcast just a couple of months ago. And then I recently saw that you were doing worship at Waffle House, which I thought was amazing on Facebook. How is that part of your life going? How do you worship as a bishop in the midst of all the other things that you're doing?
Yeah. Well, I hesitate to burst your bubble, but it wasn't worship at Waffle House.
Oh, was it not? Oh, worship and Waffle House?
And then Waffle
okay,
House.
I got you. Well, I was kind of, I didn't figure you were doing worship songs over waffles, but
there's syrup in there regardless,
that's right. There's syrup.
That's right.
And bacon? Okay, we're good. No, I didn't think you were doing worship literally at Waffle House, but the idea of that being an experience was strong. Because when we talked about podcasts, you were talking, or we talked on your podcast, you were talking about the idea of what might be next for you. So how do you get that opportunity to worship as a bishop?
Well, I'm incredibly blessed in that there was a transition plan and process with my own church, started 2 years ago, and it happened only because we had raised someone up. And we saw Christopher through the answering of a call to be a pastor, through seminary, then through ordination. And it was just obvious that he belonged in a lead pastor role. And Mosaic was eventually going to have a second generation pastor. And it made no sense to me to pass up that opportunity. I don't get to choose the time. The Father chooses the time.
Amen.
And so 2 years ago, I just acknowledged what seemed to me to be a work of the Spirit in our church, and our leaders were on board completely with the idea. And so, at the first opportunity we had, once we had disaffiliated, we put this in motion. And even it was more than a year ago that we announced a transition date of August 1st, 2024. No idea what I was going to do next. I actually assumed I would, you know, be inundated with opportunities, and they didn't come. And so I stepped out of my office on August 1st, like stepping off a cliff,
Oh,
and made the intentional choice not to pursue anything until after General Conference, because I had been nominated, and I did want to see that through. But I will tell you that if General Conference had not chosen to elect me as a bishop, I was absolutely the third shift at Waffle House was a viable option to me,
yeah.
because where else can you find a ready-made discipleship opportunity? I mean, it's like shooting fish in a
Yeah,
That's
barrel.
true. That's
Third
true.
shift, Waffle House,
Uh,
every person who walks in there is in need of healing prayer. It's
uh,
just got to be,
oh
whether it's a
yeah.
trucker, a hunter, or
yeah.
somebody coming off the strip.
Yeah.
They are ripe.
Yeah.
So I have, even since becoming a bishop, toyed with the idea of finding a Waffle House locally and asking if I could serve just as a relief waitress every once in a while, to just so I could have the opportunity to. I don't want to lose touch. I don't
Oh,
want to lose touch. But I'm getting off track. You asked me about how to worship, how I worship, and that is because um, the transition at Mosaic was so smooth and so easy. I was invited to stay, and
mm.
so I have a home church, and it's full of people I love. And when I'm home, that's where I worship. And when I'm not home, I'm worshiping with whomever I'm with.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
Absolutely.
Bishop, what fills your cup? What fuels you?
Two things, I think. One, I'm very much a visionary, so ideas fuel me. That's why the opportunity to be in the room as we form a truly global Methodist movement gets me very excited, because I like generating the ideas and the systems and the vision that will make that happen. And so ideas fuel me. Holiness, talking about holiness, I could do that all day long. Talking about the character of God, I can do that all day long. I love good, healthy theological discussions. But I'm also fueled by things like the opportunity to practice healing prayer, watching God work. I have in my ministry in the last couple of years, more and more have done more training in the area of prophetic prayer and healing prayer. When I get in rooms of people and just watch the lights come on, watch them access the power of the Holy Spirit, which has been available to them all along, but they just didn't know it was there. Man, there's just nothing better. Rooms full of people getting the lights turned on, there's just nothing better. Yeah.
And yeah, you're right. It energizes you
It does.
to do that. I mean, to
Yeah.
be just for the privilege of being a part of that, of seeing them
Yeah.
accept God, and such good stuff.
Yeah.
Going forward, what do you see or what would you pray to see from the GMC, and especially involving this new role of yours?
Well, today's Wednesday. I've officially been a bishop for 4 business days. So, so you're never so intelligent as when you've just started a thing. Um, I hesitate to make any broad sweeping pronouncements about what should be or what will be, but I will say this: that I am deeply committed to reforming the role of bishop, so that we all understand that role as a servant leadership role, and as primarily that of a spiritual leader, not administrative, not political, but a spiritual leader. So I think all 8 of us are equally committed to that, to teaching and preaching and guarding the faith, making that our first priority, which means that we're all primarily committed to our own spiritual walk and making sure that we are offering into the denomination from a full cup.
That's good. I mean, the idea that you're not only you, but that all of our bishops are not seeing this as a mechanism for self.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, that is the thing. It has to be other focus.
Yeah.
And we're committed to it being other focused.
That's refreshing and wonderful. Thank you for that.
It is. And it shows where your heart is.
Yeah.
As we go through this, because it's exciting and also terrifying to be a part of an emerging denomination.
Yeah. There's some scary parts to it, sure.
Yeah.
But I think that's for me, and maybe it is for you guys too. I have found that some of the uncertainty is what makes it so fun, right? Like it's the roller coaster, like that inevitably there's going to be ups and downs, but it's that's the reason you got on the ride, and I feel that way about what we're doing here too. It's pretty neat stuff.
Yeah, if we could just stay transparent and honest, and hold grace toward one another's mistakes. In the absence of information, assume the best instead of assuming the worst.
Yes.
Don't assume that what's in front of us now is more of the same, but assume that God actually does have the ability to do a new thing.
Oh, so true.
Just those few things can help us to weather the ups and the downs.
There's no doubt.
Yeah, that verse from Isaiah is one of my favorites, and it shows kind of as we've started and gone through all this realigning that we've been able to, I guess, jerk ourselves back from all the distractions and kind of, let's stick to the main road.
Yeah, recenter.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And that has shown so much fruit already in how God has been working through this whole process.
Yeah.
For sure. Well, and you get a front row seat to that, Bishop, as you engage with churches all over the world and get to see, we get the kind of the myopic view of what goes on in our congregation, and we get excited about those things. But I can't imagine what it's like to be able to see that happening broad spectrum in churches all over the place. That's awesome.
Well, but you guys get to see the global nature of it as well, because in the Global Methodist Church, we so far have been very intentional about matching every domestic annual conference up with an international annual conference, with one from another country.
That's right.
And North Alabama is matched up with Nigeria. And so you guys are going to have a great time getting to know Nigeria. You're in North Alabama, right?
Right.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So you're gonna be sending teams to Nigeria, learning about Nigeria, and Nigeria is going to be coming to your front door in December.
Yeah,
actually.
exactly.
Nigeria will be.
We just
coming
got the
to your
email
front
the other
door.
day about that, about how the one's going to be like down the road from us. December was
absolutely.
8th or 9th.
December
or something.
9th. Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to work on getting a podcast set up to have
Do it live from the
Bishop Auta on with us. That would be amazing. Let's make that happen.
Let's call Steve.
We need to send an email and get that done for sure.
Absolutely, you do, because John is he is a great guy. So he is a seminary worked as a president of a seminary before he became a bishop. Full of the Holy Spirit and just a brilliant man. You're going to love him. You should definitely have him on your podcast. Yeah.
That'd be wonderful.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I would be in trouble if I didn't tell you. Jenny says hello, Bishop. She was excited when I told her from Costa Rica that you had been elected. She was quite excited about that. And then when we found out that you were going to be our bishop, she was even more excited about that. So when we see you again, I'm sure she will express that herself. But know that there are a lot of really, really pleased people.
Yeah.
And I'm confident that that's the case across the globe as our new bishops are settling into their roles and getting to know each other. But gracious, we sure are blessed to have you. So,
well, and just a real blessing. Because I've had some opportunity to interact with you guys in Alabama, I was only excited, and it's nice to know I've got friends.
yes,
Thanks.
Yes.
Now, what territories are you over? I know it's a big laundry list. And isn't Uganda on there as well? And
So I was talking to Uganda this morning. How cool is that for me to be able to say that? That's like name dropping with a celebrity.
There you go.
What a step
Yeah, I
down.
was on the phone with Uganda this morning. I was
what a
having
step down to
conversations.
us.
Yeah,
You know?
Uganda, Alabama. No, I'm just kidding.
Thank you for slumming it with this podcast.
They are brand new, like haven't even had their convening conference yet, annual conference. And so I'm really excited to be with them as they are on the ground floor building.
Wow.
I'm just, that was so exciting. And that's kind of a cool thing with the 5 annual conferences I have. Each one has its own personality and its own story. That's just a lot of fun. I'm also serving as bishop for Covenant Philippines. That is the annual conference on the north end of Luzon, the main island of the Philippines. And again, they have their own story, huge church planting effort there. They've been an annual conference for 3 years, I think. Then North Alabama, you guys have your own story and are actually, fairly well developed as an annual conference. You guys are going to be able to serve as a great big brother and good model for some others. I serve South Carolina as bishop as well. South Carolina, as you may know or may not, has just had another development in the last week because of the Judicial Council ruling. And so there are a number of new churches that we expect to start in South Carolina. And then my 5th annual conference is the Western States. That's 9 states on the western side of the country, including Hawaii and Alaska. Somebody's got to do it. I'm glad it's me.
What picturesque places to serve.
Wow.
I know, only for Jesus. But it's another humongous opportunity for church planting. There are very few churches in the Western states. That's why there's 9 whole states in one conference. Very few churches, lots of church planting opportunity. So 4 out of the 5 annual conferences that I will be serving as bishop have a tremendous church planting edge to them. And I'm thrilled. It's going to be a neat puzzle to fit together, and a lot of opportunity for prayer, for encouragement, for training, and building.
Well, if we can be a resource to you in any way whatsoever, we would love to be able to help. That is, we are passionate here about building, building up people for the purpose of ministry and truly empowering our people to take lead roles in ministries here within our church and outside. And so, anything in the world we can do to help, that would be awesome. So.
If you need location scouting in Hawaii, Jeremy and I volunteer to go.
That's true.
For a couple of weeks and just look around.
Just hang out. Yeah.
Poke around. Yeah. So we can figure that out. Yeah.
I have said, as I have named, especially the Hawaii and Alaska piece, I've gotten so many volunteers, and I've started just makes me laugh to think of me showing up at a place with 50 people behind me.
So what other states do you have? What you got? Alaska, Hawaii. Yeah, I got that. But what else do you have over there?
You said Western states.
So are you talking about like
the
you
Western
have Oregon?
states? All right.
Do you have?
Don't hold me to this.
Sure.
I'm going to be embarrassed if I can't name them all. But let's see if we can get them. California, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, Nevada, Arizona, and one more, because Hawaii and Utah or Montana. No, not Montana.
Okay.
Not Montana.
Not Wyoming.
Wyoming, probably.
Well, I mean, you've been on the job for so long. I
That's
mean,
true.
I know.
Well, we did kind of spring that on you, so I'm sorry.
But it does bring us to this fact that and it's something I've seen from Bishop Jones and some of the other bishops. There's a humanity that we've seen from you guys that is once again very refreshing. Yeah. It's that realness that we're getting.
Washington, Oregon, California, Nevada, Idaho, Utah, Arizona, Alaska, and Hawaii. So it was
Utah.
Arizona that we had left, or Utah.
It was
One of
Utah
the-
we
Utah.
left
It
out.
was
Yeah.
Utah.
Utah. There
Utah's
we
the
go.
one we left off.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
I've got to make some kind of mnemonic song.
Yeah.
Alaska, or Arizona,
Yeah.
California, Hawaii.
Yeah, that
I got to
works.
make some kind of song that I can get in my head so I can remember, because Utah's the one we forgot.
Well, they won't be forgettable, I'm sure. I'm sure it'll be an awesome opportunity
right.
for
Oh, yeah.
good ministry to happen.
Once you get to know them.
That's right. That's right. Once you have faces and names, it'll be awesome.
Yeah. There you go.
Well,
Bishop Carolyn Moore, thank you for being with us today.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you. What a joy.
Absolutely. Stick around. We'll have more coming up in future weeks here on the Clearbranch Methodist podcast. In the meantime, go find us on social media, Instagram and Facebook and the YouTubes.
that's right. And check out our new series starting this Sunday, Tables, as we'll be engaging with the scripture where Jesus meets people around food, which is a pretty darn good Methodist example of life.
And
Meet
Waffle
people
House is
around
included
food.
in that.
Waffle House, that's right.
There
Maybe
you
we ought
go.
to do that.
There
Yeah,
you-
yeah.
Yeah. New ministry ideas.
That's it.
We'll see you next week, guys.